We played some sound of Warren Buffett not too long ago when he was asked about the minimum wage. And he basically said that he had been thinking about it for 30 years. And he really wasn't sure whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, which, I just found incredulous. In fact, I was, watching Warren Buffett this morning with Charlie Munger and Bill Gates interviewed on CNBC. They're having the annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, which the financial world loves to cover. And they just come down there and just giggle at Warren Buffett, and, they're in awe of him. But they were talking, and Warren Buffett was asked about, they're talking about energy and oil. And Warren Buffett thought it was good for the United States to import oil now rather than using our own oil. He said, I think it's better for us because oil is scarce and valuable. He said, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to use the other guy's oil and give them little pieces of paper in exchange for their oil. So clearly Warren Buffett understands that when we trade paper money for oil, that we're getting something real, and the guys selling us the oil are getting nothing. He understands that. He understands money and inflation, although given that, I don't understand why he doesn't understand gold, although I think he just pretends not to because he doesn't want to be seen as a gold bug. He wants to be a cheerleader. But a lot of his bullishness on the market all boils down to inflation. He believes that money is going to lose value, and he believes that you can protect your wealth, your net worth, by owning stocks instead of government paper, whether it's bonds or just cash. So he recognizes that, and I think that's a bigger point. I mean, once you understand that, you would figure that you would understand the minimum wage, and minimum wage is so basic, so absolutely basic. I mean, he's a businessman. He knows supply and demand. He knows that if something costs more, that you buy less of it. I mean, he knows how consumers react to price. That's a basic for any businessman. We're trying to price a product. You're trying to figure out, how do I maximize my profits? And you know that, well, the higher I make my price, the less I'm going to sell. And the lower I make my price, the more I'm going to sell. But you try to figure out what's the best price to maximize my profit. And the free market is going to ultimately discover that price. But there's always a trade-off, volume and price. You raise your price, you sell less. You reduce your price, you sell more. But the question is, do you sell enough more to make up for the loss of the price? Same thing with labor. If unskilled labor is a commodity, and it pretty much is, right, because it's unskilled, right? Anybody can do unskilled labor by definition, right? I mean, anybody, obviously, you can't be intellectually disabled, right? But if you're of normal intellect, and you're unskilled, you can be taught and you can perform unskilled labor. So it really is a commodity. You can just as easily substitute one person for another. And therefore, the higher the price of unskilled labor, the lower the demand for unskilled labor. I mean, that's just a law of economics. You can't repeal that with a minimum wage law. All you can do is set an artificial level below which unskilled labor is unemployable. That's all you do. And you do make it easier for skilled labor to get paid more because you knock out the competition from a large group of unskilled labor. But we listened to what Warren Buffett had to say. Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's, right-hand man. He's, not quite his partner, but he's, the second in command over there at Berkshire Hathaway. He's been with Warren Buffett for a long, long time. I don't know, 40, 50 odd years. And so he was interviewed. Again, I watched him this morning, but I have some sound from him on CNN where he was also asked the question about the minimum wage. And I'm sure, he knows, publicly what Warren Buffett said on the issue. So he has to be careful. when he talks to reporters about this very politically charged issue. But have a listen to the exchange. Here's the first cut. It's cut number 8.
Should the federal minimum wage in this country be raised?
I don't think a modest raise in the minimum wage will have any terrible consequences on the economy, and that I'm all for a small raise.
What's that number? $7.25 now?
I don't want to specify it, but I think a high minimum wage that makes lots of people unemployable, I think, is a stupid policy. But I think as long as the minimum wage is kept moderate, it should be jockeyed up every few years.
Should the federal minimum wage in this country be raised?
So in other words, he said that he doesn't want a high minimum wage that creates a lot of unemployment. That would be terrible. He just wants a moderate minimum wage that creates a moderate amount of unemployment. You see, once he recognizes that the minimum wage creates unemployment, it's just a matter of degree. Yes, the higher you make the minimum wage, the more unemployment you're going to create. If the minimum wage is $10 an hour, then $10 an hour is the bar, meaning that you have to be able to deliver $10 an hour worth of productivity to be considered for employment, which means everybody who can only deliver $9 or $8 or $7 is unemployable. If you have the minimum wage at $8 an hour, then the people who are worth $9 and $8.50, they can still get jobs, right? So the higher you make the minimum wage, you make the minimum wage $100 an hour, you've pretty much knocked out everybody, right? There's only a few people that are going to still be able to get a job when the bar is set that high. So if you recognize that there is a link, a trade-off between the level of minimum wage and the amount of unemployment, then why would you be for any minimum wage? Because that means you're admitting that you're for some unemployment being created by the imposition of that minimum wage. And what everybody always forgets is the people who don't get jobs due to the minimum wage may never get jobs. And what happens is people who might have gotten a low-paying job when they were 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, don't get that job. And because they don't get that first job, they can't get the second job. And because they can't get the second job, they can't get the third job, and so on. If you take away the bottom rung on the job ladder and people never get a chance to climb the ladder, then what has been lost? It's a lot more than the low-wage job that is legislated out of existence. It's all the other jobs that individual would have been able to qualify for had he been allowed to get his first job, but he wasn't because the minimum wage legislated him out of work. So you have Charlie Munger acknowledging, and in fact he said, well, a modest raise won't be a disaster. It won't do great harm. Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement. Yeah, what do you think about raising the minimum wage? Well, I guess it won't be a complete disaster. I guess it won't cause too much harm. That doesn't sound like he's really positive about the idea. But again, he can't come out and say he's against it because, his boss came out and said, well, he's for it, although he's not sure it's a good idea because he's only had 50 years to contemplate it and he needs another 50. And unfortunately, mortality is going to get in the way of his coming to a conclusion on the minimum wage. Here is another cut from this interview on that topic, cut number 9.
Is $10.10 an hour, as President Obama is pushing for, is that too high? Does that mean job losses?
I think the country can easily stand $10.10 an hour.
You do?
Yes.
I sat down a few weeks ago with Warren Buffett and asked him the same question. He said that is one of the hardest questions, and I've been thinking about it for 50 years, and I don't know if the minimum wage should be raised.
Well,
in terms of
he's probably right that if I were picking it, I might pick a different number because I'm naturally conservative. But I don't think it would ruin the republic if the minimum wage is $10 an hour.
Another ringing endorsement. It won't ruin the republic. It won't ruin but will it make it better? Will it improve the lives of people? No, it won't ruin the republic, but it will ruin a lot of lives. It will make it harder for young people to get jobs and acquire skills. It will trap more people in poverty. $10.10 an hour from where we are now is a 40% increase. To me, if you raise the price of anything by 40%, that's a big increase. That's not a modest rate of increase. Can you imagine any business? Wouldn't you like to jack your prices up 40% for your products? Everybody would love to, but they can't because their sales would collapse. So if you jack the price of unskilled labor up by 40%, what's going to happen? I mentioned it on the show last week. The restaurateurs that operate fast food restaurants on military bases already told the president what's going to happen. If they got to pay 1010, they're shutting down their businesses. Now, I guess that's not ruinous for the republic if, I don't know, 1,000, 5,000 fast food restaurants shut down off a military basis, and maybe these military personnel, they have fewer dining choices. I guess it doesn't ruin the republic. Well, speak for yourselves, Charlie Munger. What about the people whose lives are ruined, whose jobs are lost, and whose future is darkened because they no longer have the ability to work at these jobs and to get skills? Here's one final cut on the minimum wage with Munger here, cut 10.
And you don't think there would be significant job losses as a result?
I think there would be some job losses, absolutely. That's what's wrong with the whole idea. The second job I got paid 40 cents an hour, and that was the minimum wage. So I have been paid a minimum wage in my own lifetime.
The issue is...
And then, probably, I don't think it was worth any more.
All right. Well, I don't understand. At the end, he says, yes, it will create unemployment, and that's what's wrong with it. So then why are you supporting it? And he acknowledges this man is a billionaire. I mean, he's not Warren Buffett rich. He doesn't have 40 billion or 50 billion, but he's got one. And, one's pretty much enough. I mean, once you got $1 billion, you're pretty much set, right? I mean, how many billions do you need? So the guy's got $1 billion, yet he started out earning 40 cents an hour, and he just said that's all he was worth. So what if the minimum wage was 60 cents an hour when old Charlie Munger was just getting started? Charlie Munger, he never got his first job. Maybe he wouldn't be a billionaire today. Maybe if there was a higher minimum wage when Charles Munger was not young, he would not be a billionaire today. Maybe he never would have got a job. Maybe nobody ever would have hired him. He said right there, she said, well, you don't think there'll be any job losses at 10 cents? He said, no, of course there's going to be job losses. So then why do it? Why should we legislate people out of work? What do you tell somebody who's been made unemployed by the minimum wage? Sorry? Oops. Hey, you've got to take one for the team. Your loss is somebody else's gain. What do you tell the young kid who wants a job and can't get one because the government made it illegal to work? Hey, tough luck. Life's not fair. We had to score some brownie points. Obviously Charles Munger knows that the minimum wage is bad. So does Warren Buffett. These guys aren't idiots. They're billionaires. They know basic math. They know basic economics, but they're afraid to speak up because they don't want to criticize their boy in the White House, Barack Obama. So they want to be yes men. They don't want to educate the president, give the president the benefit of their knowledge and say, you know what? This is a bad idea. It may be good politics, but it's a bad idea. It's going to hurt the economy. It's going to hurt the very people that you claim you want to help. So forget about it. Instead of that, they want to appease them. They want to they want to pretend that something they know is bad isn't so horrible. 855-4-SCHIFF. That's our number. We got a break. We will be right back.
The Peter Schiff Show.